Free speech in the UK, a fundamental right enshrined in British culture for centuries, is under siege. Once a bastion of open dialogue and dissent, modern Britain is sliding into a world where speaking your mind can cost you your platform, your freedom, even your livelihood. Today, we'll explore how the UK government, under the growing influence of globalist agendas and elite institutions like the World Economic Forum, is slowly strangling this vital liberty. From Tommy Robinson to Lucy Connolly, from censorship to criminalization, this is the story of how UK free speech is being eroded. For centuries, Britain stood as a global symbol of liberty, particularly the right to speak freely. But in recent years, that right has been hollowed out by new laws, media pressure, and an emerging political culture that punishes dissent. What used to be protected opinions are now branded as hate speech or extremism. The line between speech and crime is being erased. The UK's Online Safety Act and Communications Act 2003 have created a digital prison. You can now be fined, banned, or even imprisoned for words typed online. Under the guise of protecting people from harmful content, Ofcom and government bodies are being handed sweeping powers to regulate what you say, share, and think. Once legal but harmful speech is criminalized, freedom becomes meaningless. Independent journalists, free speech advocates, and average citizens have found themselves under scrutiny. Social media platforms are cooperating with the state to silence voices that question mass immigration, gender ideology, or global institutions. Even comedians and podcasters are being monitored. If your opinions fall outside the accepted narrative, you're fair game. But here's the real kicker. This isn't just about protecting society. Critics believe this is a top-down campaign to condition the public into obedience. By branding every opposing view as dangerous, the state can justify its overreach. The war on free speech isn't about safety, it's about control. Lucy Connolly was sentenced to 31 months in prison for a single tweet. After the Southport killings, in which 3 girls were brutally murdered by an asylum seeker, Connolly tweeted her outrage, calling for mass deportations and suggesting that migrant hotels should be set on fire. Within hours, she was arrested. Within days, she was facing years in prison. On paper, her words were incitement to racial hatred. But to many, Connolly was simply expressing raw, emotional outrage over a horrifying event. Her tweet was undeniably aggressive, but was it truly criminal? Or was she made an example of silence to stop others from questioning immigration policy and government accountability? This case wasn't just about one tweet. It was about sending a warning. Connolly's sentence was longer than many actual violent offenders receive. And yet, the media largely sided with the government, framing her as the problem, not the root cause of her anger. The real story, the Southport killings, was buried. Connolly became the scapegoat. What if Lucy Connolly wasn't punished for her words, but for the threat her words posed to the narrative? Her case revealed the UK's double standard: harsh punishment for speech that criticizes immigration, and soft handling of crimes that challenge the state's open border agenda. In October 2024, notorious activist and independent journalist Tommy Robinson, real name being Stephen Yaxley Lennon, was jailed for 18 months after releasing a documentary-style video titled Silenced that alleged a conspiracy involving a Syrian refugee. Despite being barred by a 2021 High Court injunction for repeating libelous claims, Robinson defied the order by screening the film at a Trafalgar Square protest and online viewed over 44 million times. The establishment's response? He was swiftly charged with contempt of court, not for exposing injustice, but for allegedly disobeying a gag order. Once behind bars at HMP Belmarsh and later segregated at HMP Woodhill, Robinson was kept in solitary confinement for up to 23 hours a day, reportedly suffering from nightmares, depression, and PTSD. Meanwhile, convicted terrorists reportedly received access to group prayer and incentives, raising troubling questions. Why was this man, critical of grooming gangs and migrant policies, treated worse than jihadists? Robinson's appeal claimed his segregation was mental torture, but the Court of Appeal rejected it in April 2025, affirming that the authorities deemed him a serious risk if returned to the general prison population. His sentence was reduced by 4 months in May 2025, only after he formally agreed to remove the video from circulation and promise compliance. A public reminder, his freedom came only at the price of silence. Then came the final blow in July 2024. Robinson was arrested under the Terrorism Act when he refused to unlock his phone at a border checkpoint. The implication? Not only was he silenced domestically, but he was also labeled a terrorist suspect for defying state surveillance. So ask yourself, was Tommy Robinson punished for misinformation or punished to discourage independent reporting? In this narrative, the state's heavy-handed tactics weren't about justice. They were about control. The Southport massacre, where 3 young girls were killed by 18-year-old Axel Rudakubana, was one of the most horrific crimes in recent British memory. And yet, the media remained silent for weeks. There was no breaking coverage, no national outcry, no protest from Parliament. It was as if the entire country had been told to look away. According to whistleblowers and independent reporters, the killer had a history of violence and was known to authorities, but nothing was done to prevent what inevitably happened. Why? Because UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer had direct links to the killer's family. Years prior, while serving as a barrister, Starmer had defended Rudakubana's father in a high-profile deportation case due to being linked to a genocide in Rwanda, and would face charges if deported, arguing that the family should be allowed to remain in the UK. That case, many believe, set the stage for the tragedy that would unfold years later. So, when the massacre occurred, rather than confront the consequences of his own past involvement, Starmer's government moved quickly to contain the fallout. Freedom of information requests were blocked. The suspect's name and background were initially withheld. Police warned journalists not to inflame racial tensions by reporting on the case. This wasn't journalism, it was state-sanctioned censorship. The victims' families were left grieving in silence, while officials worked to protect the narrative. Critics argue this cover-up wasn't just about shielding one suspect. It was about shielding an entire political legacy. If the public knew that the Prime Minister had helped keep the killer's family in the country, it could spark mass outrage, protests, and irreversible political damage. So instead, the truth was buried, and anyone who tried to expose it was crushed by the full weight of the system. Labour leader Keir Starmer has presented himself as a centrist, a man of order and professionalism. But beneath the surface lies a disturbing alignment with the World Economic Forum, the architects of the so-called Great Reset. Starmer has attended Davos, rubbed shoulders with Klaus Schwab, and echoed the WEF's talking points on censorship, AI regulation, and speech harmonization. The WEF envisions a future where speech is safe, verified, and regulated, not free. They promote digital IDs, centralized media systems, and online behavior scores. Starmer's policies, particularly around online safety, hate speech laws, and political dissent mirror these goals almost exactly. Coincidence or coordination? By criminalizing dissenters and tightening control of online discourse. The Starmer-led establishment is following the WEF playbook. Silence resistance. Reprogram the narrative and reshape national identity. It's no longer about left or right. It's about top versus bottom. The elite versus the people. And in this war, your words are the first casualty. If you connect the dots, free speech erosion, the criminalization of outrage, media cover-ups, and globalist influence, it begins to look less like isolated failures and more like a coordinated, great speech reset. And unless the public wakes up, the UK may soon become a place where speaking your mind isn't brave, it's illegal. Free speech is dying in the UK, not with a bang, but with silence. And when the state punishes emotion, buries truth, and controls the narrative, it's no longer a democracy, it's an illusion. Are we ready to face that reality? If you value free speech, now is the time to stand up. Subscribe, share this video, and leave your thoughts in the comments.